The
holding
neighbors
that
are
bat
doing
around like
some
you're waiting for somebody to come in.
Oh, no.
All right, everyone, we are live. I'm just going to check right now to make sure. Yep, we are live on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and squirrels, welcome to our 2024 season preview. I'm Fernando, the Lone Star Halo, joined here by Dominic Lorenz, our friend over at Catella Chronicles, representing that side of the fence. We have a face who you guys know, you love. You don't love him too much because he's married. Rob, don't love him too much, guys. And then we got James Gonzalez, half of James Squared, the half that's been with Halos in the Infield from the beginning. Everyone, how are you? Let's start with Dominic. How are things going over at Catella Chronicles?
Things are good. You know, we're at that point of the year where spring training is done. The three-peat championship for the Angels Cactus League is over.
It is
so
done.
We couldn't celebrate this year, but hopefully that's a good omen of things to come. But things are looking up, and I'm looking forward to talking Angels baseball with you guys.
There is no champagne being popped at Tempe Diablo Stadium, unfortunately. Or should I say water bottles? And there is certainly no Chick-fil-A gift cards being given out in Tempe Diablo Stadium to celebrate, guys. Rob, how are you?
Too cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good. I'm stuck in here in Dodger country and just taking it every which way from all these fans here, and it's just the worst right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, at least you have the Freeway Series win to kind of throw back in their face. Does it count? No. Does it matter? No. But it's real to me, damn it.
It is. People got to understand, man. I got to take it while I can right now.
Yes. And I will not share your private business publicly. That's up for you. But I do want to say congratulations to you and your family on your great news.
Thank you.
No problem, my friend. And finally, as stated earlier, James Gonzalez, one of the only other people who has been here from the beginning. James, how are you doing?
I am the most expendable member of the group as well. Don't forget that.
Nobody is expendable besides Arden Moreno if he ever joins the staff. I want to hire him just to fire him.
Got my bag ready to go for the season underneath my shoes. You know, yeah, as long as you beat the Yankees, the Dodgers in the series, the Red Sox, try to get some divisional wins. I know it won't be a pretty season, but I'm just happy to get into it. I'm just happy there's going to be, regular season baseball counting coming up tomorrow or whenever it's going to start.
Yeah, so we are definitely hoping that the game happens tomorrow. Dominic was giving us the weather report. As of right now, Dominic is saying that there is a chance that the game's going to happen. Dominic, do you want to go ahead and share what you've seen right now?
I feel like I'm Mike Trout giving you the weather report at this point,
I miss when they used to do that at the stadium. They do the little Mike Trout little clips.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain all night in Baltimore, and then about until 8 or 9, 10 a.m., and then it's supposed to be just 54, cloudy, and maybe it turns into a night game instead of an afternoon game. It depends how much saturation's on the field, but I'm pretty sure they've tarped it up. It should be okay, but maybe we get Angel baseball tomorrow. If not, Friday's supposed to be incredibly windy in Baltimore, so you never know what can happen. Of course, we start the year on the East Coast.
Well, if the game is canceled tomorrow and postponed, it'll be the second straight spring training where something got canceled. Last year it wasn't a game, but it was a podcast, and this year it's a game. So maybe some people will get the reference, maybe some people won't. I digress. So we are here today. We might be joined by some other members of Halos in the Infield, but we decided to get the show on the road because we are excited to preview this season and what's to come. So let's start off by talking about the off season and maybe giving a letter grade. Now, it's no secret that it was not a super eventful off season, okay? But we've been saying for years that we wanted this organization to have a sense of direction. I think we can all agree as a unit here that for once we do feel like the organization has a path in which they're following, right? which is seemingly let the young kids play. So with that being considered, Dominic, I'm going to start with you, then we're going to go to Rob, then we're going to go to James, because that's just the clockwise order, the order I'm seeing here. So, guys, in your opinion, I want you to give a letter grade, not for the acquisitions, but with everything being considered this offseason and the path that the organization is taking. What is the letter grade that you give them this offseason for having a plan and sticking to it?
At this point right now, I would say you're probably somewhere in the B- C+ range, because what really brings the grade down is, of course, Artie Moreno is still the owner of the Angels. We heard reports that Perry Manassian really wanted JD Martinez. He wanted Blake Snell. He wanted some other pieces of the puzzle. And Artie said they're not going to push the needle with this team right now. There's no confidence coming from the guy at the top. And right now, based on the way spring training went and what you're hearing from the younger guys, the Ohapis, the Netos, and everybody else, there is a fire on this team to perform and surprise a lot of people. And I think it all begins with Ron Washington. I think Ron Washington and the coaching staff that Perry put together and essentially what Wash put together, I think is an A+ coaching staff, at least on paper right now. We saw them through spring. We'll see what really happens on a day-to-day basis starting tomorrow if the season begins. So I would say coaching staff within itself would be an A. We're moving in. I know Todd, myself, and Rob, we talked about it a couple days ago, talking about the entire Ohtani situation, is we're moving in the post-Ohtani phase of life. And that cloud of discussion is now over. And not even in regards to the whole gambling scandal, just Ohtani as the two-way player. So I feel there's a sense of relief in this organization that that's not the number one question being asked of when's Ohtani going to pitch? What's the 6-man rotation look like? Who's going to have to fill in for Ohtani at the DH spot? I think there's just a growing sense of role players, do your job. Everybody leans on everybody, and it's not a 2-horse race of big name Trout, big name Ohtani, and then everybody else gets left in the dust. So it does feel a little bit of a renaissance and a little bit of a rebirth. How long is that going to take us? We shall see. But I'd say B-, C+, because again, not flashy moves. And the big demerit of it all is Artie is still, and maybe forever and always, the Angels owner until the day he dies. I don't know.
Rob?
I'm gonna go C- overall. I mean, it started off pretty strong. I was pretty happy. We went after bullpen arms, and we got some guys to help out. And with the supporting cast that we had, I thought it was the right moves. And then we knew we were gonna lose Ohtani, right? It was there, but there was the big names out there. There was Montgomery, Snell, Martinez. You can get a whole bunch of guys out here to fill this spot and fill little holes here and there. And like Dominic said, yeah, these guys are hungry. They want to prove themselves, which is great overall, and I'm happy about that. And I want these guys to go ahead and prove everyone wrong. But I look at it and I don't see the starting rotation. I still see the same problem. And who we have when one guy goes out, it's Jose Suarez popping in the rotation again, and that is a mess in itself, backing it again. And then we took Soriano out of the bullpen, who I thought was going to be a sixth, seventh inning guy who'd come in, help out, right, relieve some guys for setup men, maybe possibly close every once in a while when called upon. But now he's a project to be a starting pitcher. Our track record to change relief pitchers, starting pitchers, has not been great. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying
developing
that
pitchers of any kind haven't been great, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely awful. And then you look at what we traded last year in order to get these rental players who we have none of this season. So we gave up everything to try to make a push that wasn't there. And I agree. Artie Moreno, being the owner, it will always have a dark cloud over this team. And let's say, for God's sake and reason, we go ahead and make that playoff run. Do we have enough to take us beyond without making a trade? I don't think so right now. Ron Washington, great coach, put together a great staff overall. But at the same time, you can get the best chef in the world, but if you don't give him the right ingredients to make something up, you can't do it.
Yeah, Burger King or McDonald's ingredients are still simply that, right? You have a guy who's capable of making some of the best food on the planet, right? But if you're using ingredients that are subpar or mediocre, it's not going to make your food any better. Maybe they can help get you a little closer to, getting where you want to be, but it doesn't change the fact that your ingredients aren't there. You're taking shortcuts. You're taking the easy way out. So I 100% agree with what you're saying, Rob. James, take it away.
Man, I think you guys are grading too high. I feel like it's a D, just because
Okay.
Artie's the owner.
Because she wants it, right,
still.
James? The D.
Yeah. Okay, not only that, but all the free agents that the Angels were supposedly in on, and then you just knew there was no way they were going to sign him. Artie quickly shut everything down that Perry wanted. You get Stevenson for the bullpen, but that's a little signing there. When you could have bumped up that rotation, like Rob was saying. Hey, it's still the same rotation from last year, and it's too many lefties, too many inconsistent starters. When they get into trouble, it's awful, right? Look at the outfield. All they did was put in Aaron Hicks, and that was, a bargain. He was good, half of last year at Baltimore, but you still have the young same guys and Trout there, just really unproven guys are injured. You didn't make any improvements there. I was hoping to get JD Martinez at least to be the DH. I think he would have been fine there, but I probably was too much. The bullpen, you don't know because they're moving players around. I didn't like the Soriano move, trying to get him as a starter. They're going to try that with Suarez, I think, too, to maybe be that long reliever, and that's fine. But Estevez, you still don't know if you're going to get the first half of Estevez or if he's going to be awful like the second half all of the season. You really don't know. So the point that you lose Ohtani, and again, we all knew that was going to happen. I knew 2 years ago that they should have traded him at the deadline to LA. And you would have got a good haul back for that 1 year of control or year and a half of control. That would have been simple. But Artie wanted that spending money, advertising money, and that's where we are now. So just because Artie's still here and he like you guys said, the art of saying no, I think it's a D for the offseason. Just little moves that don't mean anything, that makes the team maybe even worse.
I'm going to say C- myself and teetering on a D. Now, there's a lot of longtime listeners who are going to be like, well, Fernando, Todd, you guys have said for years and years and years, as is James, since he's been here since the beginning, that we want to see a rebuild, right? We've been clamoring for it. And I think most real Angels fans, and we're starting to see who the real Angels fans are because they're still here. The fair weather fans don't care. They're not going to care this year, or they're now wearing that gaudy, horrible blue color. So with that being said, we finally didn't make a big signing. And the reason why I didn't say we're finally having a rebuild is because we're not. Show of hands. Who thinks we're currently having a rebuild? I mean a legitimate rebuild. I don't mean a partial rebuild. Who thinks we're having an actual rebuild right now?
You'll never have a rebuild under Artie Moreno. He's a slap the bandage on it and hope it gets better as time goes on.
Exactly. I agree with you. It's the patch things up kind of mentality. Yeah. Now, the reason why I say that we're not having a real rebuild, and the thing that pisses me off the most is the fans who are like, oh, well, we've been having a silent rebuild. No, guys, that's a Halo honk mentality. We have not been having a silent rebuild. We've sucked for the greater part of the last 10 years, sure. If that's your argument, then yeah, I agree. But the fact of the matter is this. They went sort of in on a rebuild. But once again, it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Kind of like they've been doing like 5 out of the last 6 years during the trade deadline. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We're going to trade Ian Kinsler because he's a rental. We're going to trade these rental pieces, but we're not going to go fully in on a rebuild. Because years ago, they could have traded Trout. They could have traded Ohtani. You could go down the list. Hell, Cole Calhoun used to have some value. You could go down the list of guys they could have traded years ago if they were really going in on a rebuild. Or even this offseason, you could have traded some guys, right? Yeah. Rengifo had value. Canning had value. Detmers, Sandoval. These guys had value. So don't give me this, well, we've been doing a rebuild. No, we hadn't. If they wanted to go in on a rebuild, they could have. So that's why I'm going to give them a C-. Did they make the bullpen better? Sure. Honestly, this is my hot take, and we'll get to it a little later. I think the Angels bullpen could potentially be top 10 in baseball this year. They're definitely, in my opinion, going to be on the upper half. So I think we're going to be more in that 12 range, but 10 is a possibility.
I think it depends on Stevenson getting healthy.
Yes.
If Stevenson is healthy and he pitches like he has been in Tampa Bay, I think you could see that bullpen being top 10, maybe top 5, 6 in the American League. Especially with Matt Moore returning after a good 2023 campaign. If Estevez is the first half Estevez and not the second half Estevez, that back third of the bullpen would be very, very good. I think no matter what we talk about on the show here tonight, regardless if it's offensive starting lineup, bench pieces, starting rotation, bullpen, whatever, we always have to caveat it by saying the Angels on paper, because we always talk about it every year. Injuries happen. A player who we think is going to be great darts off the opposite direction. So, of course, no regular season games have been played yet. So, yes, technically is it all on paper, but whenever we talk about it by the All-Star break and the end of the year, on paper, the Angels should have fill in the blank. And that's where we're at, I think, in an Artie Moreno ownership mentality.
Anybody have a rebuttal to what Dominic had to say, or any?
No, I agree with you guys. I just worry about Simber. I couldn't really tell his, submarine delivery. He's going to leave too many, balls down the middle and up. And the power hitters, the lefties, are going to love that. I just hope Matt Moore stays healthy. And we got to worry about Stevenson already.
Because Stevenson was our big signing this offseason.
That was the highest paid signing this year. Yeah. So
say what you want. And I'm not going to say that Stevenson isn't a good signing on paper. You got the guy for 3 years, but go ahead, James. Sorry.
I think Simber.
You did.
I think Simber's a good signing, actually, if you pair him right. We have the right manager in there, right? You're not going to have a Phil Nevin who's going to throw, let's say, a Griffin Canning with a low 90s fastball with a Simber who throws a little bit slower in the high 80s, because hitters are going to be on it, right? You need to go ahead and power it up, put a Silseth out there who's powering up that fastball that day. And honestly, you got to get rid of freaking Estevez. I know people are hyped on him. I still think he leaves the ball up. He gets a lot of fly ball outs, deep fly ball outs, and you don't need that from your closer. You need ground balls from a closer like that to be dominant. You need that breaking type of pitch and stuff that's down in the dirt, cutting away. But you're going to get burned after a while. You leave the ball up that long, you get burned. And he got burned the second half of the season, just like he got burned when he was in Colorado. We use the excuse, hey, it's Colorado. Everyone hits the ball out there. Well, apparently you hit it out anywhere. If you leave the ball up there, mid-90s like that, people are going to catch on after a while. I am not high on this guy at all. I wasn't high on him last year. Wasn't high on Tyler Anderson. They didn't do anything this spring training to work on stuff. They were in there to get outs, it looked like, instead of working on their pitch to get better at something. I didn't see any of that. And he is just so content about it. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's a great clubhouse presence, a great teammate. However, stop going for the flash and the show. Like today, you guys see him board the plane? It was a freaking fashion show for him. No, play baseball. You were here to freaking play baseball and get outs. Because as of now, Matt Moore should be the closer if Stevenson can't come out. I would make Estevez earn that role because he's done nothing to earn that role, in my opinion, at least.
No, he has not shown up this spring training. I feel like he's kind of had that mentality of, it's my job, it's my job, it's my job. And there's nothing wrong with some friendly competition. I was kind of hoping that Ben Joyce was going to bring it. Ben Joyce is still a young kid, though. I don't hate the move of him going down to Rocket City. I think Rocket City is a good place for him because I just feel like a place like the PCL is going to ruin his confidence. We don't see a lot of top pitching prospects go to PCL and succeed anyway.
And you and I talked about that, Fernando, a couple weeks ago about the whole Ben Joyce situation moving forward. And I think we knew Ben Joyce was probably going to go down to the minors at some point. Plenty of controllable years in the arm, still needs to get that command and velocity in line together, because if he does get it in line, he will be the closer of the future for the Angels. It just all has to come in line. At this point, if Stevenson's going to be out, whatever timeline he will be, Matt Moore, I agree, Rob, is a viable closer. I don't foresee the Angels going that route. I think he's more the 7th, 8th inning guy. Not personally, I would go closer as well, but he doesn't fit the mold and the way baseball was played in 2024. So I could see them sticking with Estevez and knowing Ron Washington. If Estevez has 1 or 2 bad blown saves, maybe he loses his job. And, Ron Washington's not afraid to give a quick hook and dice things up. And if that has to be the case where you kind of have to get humble a little bit and Ron Washington has to, I don't want to say badmouth, but put you in your place, maybe that's what the Angels need to get a new closer instead of Estevez to humble him a little bit.
Yeah, guys, I'm just looking toward the youth of this bullpen. I'm gonna butcher these names, but Guillermo Zanija. I gotta be careful how to say that, but that he's got some good fastball speed. I really like his location, and he's got some fire in him. And then Jose Cisnero.
Cisnero, yeah.
Cisnero.
Cisnero.
I liked his stuff. I don't know. He was a fringe guy, but I think he's gonna. Yeah, he made the team. I want to see those young guys come in, like the 5th and 6th innings, just see what they have, and maybe they kind of get boosted up more than Suarez, more than Luis Garcia, guys you don't want to see come in the game in pivotal times. So I'm kind of seeing the youth of that bullpen and hoping that works out.
Here's one player that I'll ask you guys that we saw a little sample size last year, got injured, he ended the year. Sam Bachman, he makes the active roster, he's back. Is he a guy that's probably better served to fill in that Suarez role of, the Angels need a starter today? Let's go Sam Bachman, because I think we like the stuff from Sam Bachman clearly more than Suarez at this time, but maybe he's a guy where Tyler Anderson's only able to go 4 1/3 this afternoon. We need 2+ innings from a Sam Bachman. Let's get us to the 8th inning and relieve the bullpen of the situation. Because Sam Bachman's a very interesting case at only 24, 25 years old with about less than a year of service time. It's a good option to have.
Yeah, I mean, he is a good option overall to have. I'm not big on him coming off an arm injury like that and coming in as a long reliever role. I'd like to kind of just hope they contain his pitch count and his innings limit. But if he was healthy, he can serve as that. I almost see him as a 6th-inning type of guy who bails out that starting pitcher. Hey, just get us 5. Get us through 5. Let's turn over the bullpen. And you're that guy to take it. If you can get 6, 7, depending on your pinch count, we're good to go. But just get us through this middle part of the innings here so we don't lose this game. But you're right. If he was healthy, I'd be more confident in him being that guy to take us a little bit longer and work him towards a starting role. But as of now, I say if that game's getting out of hand that bad, have Suarez go eat innings if he can. Because at that point in time, you just need someone to eat the innings in between. Because as we all know, Angels baseball, if our starting pitcher's coming out in the 3rd, 4th inning, we're already in big trouble.
Absolutely. So you brought up Suarez, and you brought him up earlier too. So let me ask you guys about him. So he's out of options. He had to make the team or, clear waivers again. So with that being said, do you guys like him in that, flex starter, that long reliever type of role where, just like Rob said, maybe he can get the Angels out of trouble. He can give you maybe 3 or 4 innings, or maybe, someone has some shoulder tightness in the 2nd inning, and now you essentially need him to go out there and be the starting pitcher, to get you to the 7th inning. Do you like Suarez in that role? And since we've seen him succeed in that role before, can he get there again? Dominic.
He's got to be kind of like Rob said about Bachman coming off the arm injury. It's got to be minimal usage to prove that he can be consistent. In a normal, winnable game, or when the Angels are doing well and not a shelled blowout where go throw 8 innings and save the day for the bullpen to keep arms alive, Suarez should be no more than an inning or 2-inning guy, because we see him always, and we always joke about when Todd thought he was going to be one of the best pitchers last season. His stamina is very, very short. and he gets lost in his head so many different times. And instead of pitching to contact and trusting defense, he'll try to spot up the ball, miss location, create a lot of walks, and then get susceptible to leaving the ball in the zone for doubles, triples, homers. So I think it's all a matter of just being consistent, keeping him to an inning, gain the confidence as time goes on, because if he could be a viable left-hander out of the bullpen, because right now the Angels are very left-handed heavy in the starting rotation with Anderson, Sandoval, and Detmers. The bullpen, with the exception of Matt Moore, Suarez, I believe, is your only lefty now. Am I correct?
It would have been Quijada, but he's not ready.
It would have been Quijada if he's not ready. So really, with no options, I know we'll probably talk about it in a little bit with the whole Joe Adele situation of him making the roster without having any options. I think the Angels were kind of handcuffed in this situation. It was make him a bullpen guy, or unless he really, really blew it in spring training where his ERA was astronomical and you knew he wasn't going to perform anywhere, he was being put on the active roster at this point. So it's a matter of time. I think it's just, I don't want to call it a ticking time bomb, but he is what he is at this point. There's no hiding who Jose Suarez is. He's got to make this work, or at some point, Ron Washington and the staff will say, it's time to go. We got to move on. There's other people at AAA, like a Soriano, who needs to come in and fill the void. I know they're trying to work out Andrew Wentz as a starter, but if they need him in the bullpen, bring him back, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with him, right? Overall, I say you let him go, because if you have to question a guy over and over again on what you're going to do with him, where you're going to fit him in, he doesn't fit in the plan, right? He's been a question for years now on us. We thought he could be something. Clearly saw last year. I don't think he had an arm injury at all. I call BS on that. He was tipping pitches. His mechanics were off, and they couldn't figure out how to get him fixed in time. And baseball's a very mental game, right? These guys go see sports psychologists all the time to talk about it. Look at Rick Ankiel. Guy went from throwing 98 miles per hour. I know a little show my age there, but the guy went from throwing 98 miles per hour off the mound to not being able to pitch at all.
I remember Rick Ankiel on the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's almost a mental case like that, and the Angels don't have time for that now. They can't develop players in the major league. I'm not a big fan of developing guys in the major league as it is. That's why I also agree. I love Ben Joyce to death. Great send down. Suarez has been a project for years now, pitching coach after pitching coach. And everyone's going to say, Matt Wise didn't do a great job. 2 years ago, the Angels were at top 10 in pitching. I believe they're the only team that was top 10 in pitching who did not make playoffs because our hitting was so bad that year. Yep. So we have the guys. Some guys have the stuff they got to put together. I'm just not a firm believer in project after project, because my personal belief right now, with Suarez being a project, Estevez being a project, I hate to say this, Patrick Sandoval almost being a project too, because he's so hit or miss lately. You have too many guys who are not dependable to go through this season and to even have somewhat a 500 season. I mean, how are you going to do that? You're giving, like I said, you're not giving Ron Washington the ingredients to succeed here. So what are you going to do? You're putting him in a rock and a hard place, because we've mismanaged the situation for years now, and now Suarez is still sitting here. And honestly, if you dropped him down, would a team really take him right now?
It's weird, because there are some organizations that are great at these project pitchers, right? They find these diamonds in the rough, they develop them when seemingly everyone else is giving up on them, and all of a sudden they turn out to be great players. And there's a lot of organizations that can do that with position players. I mean, look, Brandon Drury a couple of years ago was dog water. Went to Cincinnati, resurrected his career, one of the Padres, did well there, and now he came here and has proven that, hey, I can even succeed in a place like Anaheim. So with that being said, the Angels are not that organization. They've tried taking on these reclamation projects, and it hasn't worked, right? We can go down the list. Tim Lincecum, Matt Harvey, Trevor Cahill. Those are just to name a couple. It doesn't work here, and it hasn't worked here in a while. So I definitely agree with what Rob's saying, and I think Rob's right. I don't think there is a lot of organizations that would take a chance on him right now, but who knows? Maybe it's a place like Oakland. Maybe it's a place like Tampa Bay. James, how about you? Jose Suarez, do you like him in that role?
Yeah, maybe Pittsburgh. No, I was thinking about it. I was like, man, didn't he want arbitration money and the Angels and everybody said no to him? It just made you think
Yeah.
like, okay, he's still not going to get what he wants and he's still not going to be anything unless he has a miracle turnaround. I like what Rob mentioned. I didn't even think of that, where he just let him go, but without the options. You really don't have a choice and you don't have time wait. You have time kind of wasting going by. I'm sick of the old projects. I want to work on the young new ones and maybe they'll blossom into something, barring injury. Yeah, for Suarez, look, where you can put him in, it would have to be like a non-stressful situation, and there's not going to be many of those, unless you come in and you have him like a position player pitching when you're down 10-1 in the top of the ninth at home or whatever. There's not going to be anything for him where he can succeed. He just walks too many batters, and then the power is just awful. He leaves the pitches, just like too high in the zone and in to, left-handed hitters. That just kills him. Even the lefties, it's just awful. So yeah, I agree with Rob. I would just come loose and just let someone else, let the young guys come up and see what they can do. If you do have Suarez though, if you do use them, it'd probably be, let's say the Angels starters, they only go like 2 3/3 innings or 3 2/3 innings. I would put him in maybe in that role where you get the last out and then start the next inning, and then that'd be it. I would never put him in 2 innings of work. I don't think he's ready for that. I think Rob mentioned with the injury, I think that'd be too much on him.
Yeah, I think the Angels organization, to what all three of you said, is with all these projects, the Angels are too nice of an organization to essentially cut it out. But again, I think that all refers back to Artie Moreno being 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We're going to bandage this organization, and instead of developing all of the youth on this team, we sprinkle it in again a little bit with Ohapi, a little bit with Neto, and we do it here and there. But with the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, it leads you to have to rely upon these projects to keep the house glued together and hopefully do not let the toothpick bridge fall. No pun intended to the state of Baltimore and Maryland right now. But, not to put that out there, but, you're in a situation where, in a way, the Angels organization is that bridge. You keep taping it together, and when you have somebody, a problem with the ship, Artie Moreno, and all these wacky ideas to think that I'm the greatest mind of all time and I'll revive Lincecum, I'll revive Cahill. We can be nice to Suarez and keep giving him chances. We can't do that. You need to learn when to cut it off and know where to fall on the sword, essentially. And we talked about it a lot, Fernando and all of us, in the offseason when it came to, is Joe Adell going to make this roster? And if he didn't, the Angels were going to finally have to succumb to the fact that they wasted a top pick on a guy who's a 4A player at best. So, I know we'll talk about Joe Adell, and I have my thoughts on that, but there's so many players. I would say probably half of this organization right now is the Joe Adell Suarez's of the bunch of, we really don't know what we truly have with these guys because they have really great moments and really bad moments, and it's very bipolar.
All right. So now let's get to the actual prediction side of the show. All right. So let's start off with one that's probably going to be a little bit more debate. So the Nick Aidenhart Pitcher of the Year goes, for anyone who's not familiar, goes to the best pitcher in the organization that year. All right, so Dominic, in your opinion, who is going to be the Nick Aidenhart Pitcher of the Year for the Angels organization?
Pitcher of the Year this year, I think, is going to go to Chase Silseth.
Really? Wow, okay.
We've seen really great stuff from him. I think overall, with the current starting 5 rotation that we have, he has the best overall complexion. And I know the Angels pitching staff and Ron Washington is extremely high on Griffin Canning, and Canning has looked very good, and it looks like there's a resurgence. But there's something about Chase Silseth that just has a dog in him that we've really been wanting from guys like Sandoval and Detmers. And he's performed that ever since he went back down to AAA, was it last year and even the year before, when he altered that secondary pitch and came back before getting plunked in the head in New York last year. He was surefire the Angels' best pitcher in such a very limited scope. So for me, I think Chase Silseth is the Nick Adenhart Award pitcher this year. I think just overall, and let's be real, he's going to turn 24 in May. 24. So one of the younger guys amongst the staff that's very controllable arm. I like what I see here from Chase.
Rob, Nick Adenhart, pitcher of the year.
Gotta agree. I thought it was Chase Silseth too. He has grit. He has the come get you attitude. You haven't really seen that in a while from these Angels pitchers, right? I would almost say like a Bartolo Colon, who won the Cy Young, or a Jared Weaver type, a mixture of both. But he has the stuff. He has those breaking balls, that curveball to come in and get you, and he's not afraid to challenge you on a pitch. He gets behind on the count. He doesn't just fold. He comes right back after you, and I love that. I love that about this pitcher. He should be the opening day starter. He is our ace.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't care what anyone says on that one. Griffin Canny had a great spring training, don't get me wrong, but Silseth came after those guys, and he is hungry, and he wants to prove himself. And honestly, we found a diamond in the rough in that draft right there by getting him when we got him. And it's hard to say, right? And guys, there's other pitchers out there, oh, we should have got him. But at the same time, we need guys who want to work, and he wants to work and prove himself, and he's there. So I love that about him. And I wasn't big on the six-man rotation. So let's see how this guy pitches with a five-man rotation, getting more innings out there, more of a routine. He's by far the best pitcher we have.
James.
Now I'll make it a clean sweep. I really like his determination, grit. I mean, after all, our own first baseman hit him in the head with the ball. I think he should get the nod because of that. That's obvious. No, just everything the two guys said, I was gonna say about him. Definitely, I definitely agree with that. I can't see Sandoval doing anything. Detmers, he has one start where it looks like, where they drafted him, but then you have Canning, who's often injured and will just walk the hell out of everyone. Tyler Anderson, he doesn't throw that fastball he does throw that fastball that isn't fast. I know he's working on the off-speed stuff, trying to locate outside corner to righties, but Silseth is definitely the best out of the rotation, and I don't think it's even close.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and be the one who's different here. I think it's going to be Griffin Canning. I think he's finally going to have a season where he stays healthy. I think he's going to put himself in a position to prove that he is worthy of the expectations set for him, right? I mean, this guy was a second-round draft pick. This is one of the only, dare I say, potentially successful Billy Epler draft picks, right? As of right now, the most successful Billy Epler draft pick was Taylor Ward, and it took him a very, very long time to become a productive major leaguer. And even then, you can't say that he's a star or, that he'd be much more than maybe a fringe starter on any other fully loaded major league roster. So I think Griffin Canning's going to give himself the opportunity this year to differentiate himself. I think he has the ability to be an ace. I think he's a guy that should have been dealt given his injury history, but they decided to keep him around. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. By default, he's the veteran of the bunch. Kind of funny to say that about a guy who doesn't have too many starts because of his injury history. But I'm really excited to see what Kenny can do, and I think he's going to prove to be one of the better pitchers this year on the roster. All right. So who do you guys think is going to be the Angels team MVP this year? By default, it's been either Shohei or Trout. So we don't have to worry about Ohtani getting the award anymore. And if anyone's going to say Trout, don't say that, please. Give me someone who's at least a little bit more of a dark horse than Trout if that was your pick.
Trout, I think we can all agree Trout's always going to be the pick. He's fan favorite. He's the team leader in all sense of the word.
Yeah, he batted 240, no problem. It's Trout.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. No worries. It's Mike Trout. I think outside of Mike Trout, if we're going to base it on offensive numbers, because typically, however this top offensive player, it's always the guy who's batting the best, has the most home runs. That's just how it's been. I really believe it's going to be Brandon Drury. I think if he has a replication of 2023, he's the guy in the middle of the lineup that can really carry this team. I know Ron Washington has fiddled with the lineup a little bit, and we've been seeing Anthony Rendon in the leadoff spot, which I can neither confirm nor deny if that's a good or interesting or very poor decision at the end of the day. But I think Brandon Drury in the middle of this order, if the table setters at the top get on base, he has been a consistent guy that can drive them in. If I'm going to have a heartstring pick, I would say probably Logan O'Hoppe, but that's for the heartstring, the young core. But overall, I would go Brandon Drury in this sense.
Rob.
I'm going to go Neto, to be honest with you. I thought he had a great spring. I was able to go out there and see him play against the Diamondbacks spring training, and he was hungry, right? He had that look in his eyes, determination. He was out there grinding. I was lucky enough to get an autograph from him, too, for my son. He had great interaction, but he was all business. His strikeouts were down. He took a couple base on balls this year. It would have been Drury for me. My issue with him, he strikes out a lot. And I don't like that right now. For a guy, we kind of need to take more pitches and be patient, which he's really good at being patient. But he's really nitpicking at that strike zone for me. But I think this is Neto's time, and shortstop's the leader of the infield and usually the leader of a team overall. You see that from time to time, and I think Neto can be that. And I'm with Dominic on that. I love O'Hoppe, man. I love his work ethic. And MVP, that's not strictly on stats, but on how they carry the team and help the team out, 100% O'Hoppe right now. Because he's taking the weight, putting it on his shoulders and going with it, taking this pitching staff under control, working at his hitting and his craft in itself. And that's a guy who I'd love to see succeed and be one of the better catchers and sign that 10-year deal like Will Smith just signed and stay with the Angels for life. If we can defer money, but already won't do it. Anyways, we just need to go ahead and just acknowledge a guy like that because this is rare. It's a very rare thing that we have in front of us. That trade is probably one of the better trades. It's a win for both sides, and I think O'Hoppe has the potential in the next upcoming years, but this year right now, it's Neto for me.
I think it's co-MVPs. I'm going to go Neto and O'Hoppe. I think both show leadership skills and both will produce. It's kind of sad, though, when you think about it. The two young guys on your team show more leadership than the two, veteran, money guys. I think that's very sad, but I would love to have those guys around forever. And, with the fielding of a Neto, it's just amazing to see, even at a young age. We saw that right when he came up. And then for O'Hoppe, I hope his fielding skills get better, but you could just tell he's going to supply that power. He's going to be awesome. So I'm going to go co-MVPs with Neto and O'Hoppe. But if I had to pick one, I'll just go O'Hoppe just with the leadership role. I think he's really going to take off this year.
I'm going to go ahead and say Zach Neto. I think he's going to have a 2020 season. I like his speed. I like his aggressiveness out there. I love the fact that he wants to be there. That is a kid who enjoys the game of baseball. And that's something we haven't seen out of an Angels player in quite a few years, right? O'Hoppe's another one of those guys. Looks like they want to be there. I mean, we saw O'Hoppe and Neto take exception to losses last year, right? Mm-hmm. They looked upset. They were in the dugout. They looked legitimately frustrated. Not in the sense of it's affecting their game, but in the sense of, hey, you know what? Like, I'm taking this personally. And that's what you want out of young leaders, right? You want them to take these losses personally because you want them to use it as fuel to their fire. There's two different kinds of leaders. There's vocal leaders, and there is leaders who lead by example. There's nothing wrong with either one, but certain teams cling on to certain things. Trout is a very passive leader, and more so, I feel like Trout's a leader by default. Something tells me that if Trout was on a team of leaders, he might not be a leader. You know what I mean? He'd be a guy who people would look towards, people would model their game after, maybe people would ask him a question or two, but I don't think Trout would be the guy leading the charge, right? From what we've known, from what we've heard behind the scenes, I think that's more so the guy that Trout is. Guys like Neto, guys like Ohapi, look and sound like the type of guys who are going to be like, hey, Rob, you're tipping your pitches up there. What are you doing? And that's what you need to do when you're a leader. You can't be afraid to call this guy or that guy out, because I know for a fact that those are the kind of guys that don't mind being called out. It's a two-way street. A leader has to learn, and a leader has to be willing to give the information. And those young guys bring that presence. They bring that aura. And I truly see a situation where they are leading a championship parade here in Anaheim in a few years. I don't think we're 2, 3, even 4 years away from that happening. But I can see an avenue where we are talking in, a little in the next decade about some winning here in Anaheim. Okay, so now that we've crossed that bridge, who do you guys think is going to be the breakout player this year? It could be some guy we've already said. That's kind of a tough question because a lot of this roster is pretty unproven. But if that's a short answer, like, I already said it's going to be Silseth, that's fine. But who do you think is going to be the breakout guy this year?
I think for me, Silseth is going to be one, as we've already stated. And we got a glimpse of him last year, and I think it's going to continue into this year. Nolan Shawnuel. I think he's a great contact hitter, gets the ball in play, and I know they're working on improving the defensive work over at first base. There's a reason why the Angels didn't go after another first baseman. Really, at this point, Brandon Drury's your the backup first baseman at this point with the infielders that they carried on the active roster. Pretty much your bench is going to be Luis Rengifo and Michael Stefanik, and neither one of them play first. So I think it's Nolan Shawnuel.
Nor does Miguel Sano, right?
No, Miguel Sano, I would say, is more third. I think maybe in an emergency situation you could throw him over at first, but it's Shawnuel. And oddly enough, I've been a very pro Shawnuel proponent in the leadoff spot probably since he came up. I actually like him a little bit too in the 5-6 hole where Ron Washington's been testing him out the latter parts of spring. So regardless of how it works out with the batting order, I think Shawnuel, remember, he's entering this year on a 29-game on-base streak from last season. So how deep is that going to go? It could go the way he approaches the dish, 35, 40, who knows? But I think he could have a really big breakout full campaign season. And he was drafted last year. I saw him in one of his first few games at Single A Inland Empire. He batted 8-something in the first week and a half of pro ball. This guy knows how to put it in play. There's no doubt about it. So that's a guy Ron Washington wants to have in the lineup every day.
James wants to get in the lineup too. I saw him swinging that bat. Rob?
I'm ready to go.
I was going to say Shawnuel too, but I'll even go as far to say Aaron Hicks. He put together a pretty good spring here. He's been struggling these last couple of years. Yeah. Hasn't really found it for him. A lot of base on balls. He takes a lot of good pitches, works that count a little bit, and I think he knows that this is kind of the last hurrah. You fail here, it could be over, right? It could be your starting position is over. You could just be a backup or a defensive replacement, but you're going to lose that. I see him really with Ron Washington working right now, and you see a little bit more fire out of him than you did with him in the Yankees. Similar to kind of what you saw in Baltimore, but he had the youth around him, right, keeping him younger. Not that he's old, but these other guys held him accountable. And I think Ron Washington's holding him accountable, and I could see him having a breakout type of year. Does he stay with the Angels after the trade deadline? We shall see, because as you know, you do too well here, and you're not in the playoff contention, you're easily gone. But I can just see him turning that corner. He's back home. He's from Long Beach. He was born in San Pedro. So he's here. He's here to stay, hopefully.
He's the Moustakas of 24.
Yeah, right.
I would have been that far. Moose is a different character, man. I love Moose. Yeah.
Hey, he's available. You don't know. He's available. Bring him back.
He's available now.
With Sano, we'd have needed Sano to really tank to get Moustakas back here and everything, and that just didn't happen. Sano put together a decent spring.
Or a major injury.
we are the Angels. I mean, major injury is in the cards. So
That's why you mentioned that, Rob, because I was thinking maybe Hicks can go somewhere better and compete for a postseason spot, before that deadline is over.
James?
I know somebody wants me to say Mickey Moniak, and that's a
Okay.
dark horse, I would think, because he's going to compete with Aaron Hicks for that right field spot, or whenever Taylor Ward or Trout gets hurt, eventually everyone will get a shot. But yeah, I agree with both of you guys, Nolan Shanuel as well. His plate vision's really well, and I just love the way he's hitting. He put on those 15 pounds of muscle, so I think that's really going to help him. We don't care really about the launch angle. We just want the ball to find some grass out there and some warning track. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Shawnee Well. I think he has that breakout year for the Angels.
All right, I'm going to say Taylor Ward. Now, the
Needs
reason
it.
why I'm saying Taylor Ward for a breakout year is because he hasn't had a full year where he's healthy. This guy has had the epitome of bad luck. I don't know if he walked under a couple ladders. I don't know if he broke a glass mirror. Maybe he dropped a lot of salt. But this guy has run into the only concrete slab in the right field wall at Angel
Mhm.
Stadium, got a hit in the face in the batter's box. So they're just bad luck after bad luck. So I'm hoping that he, just like Griffin Canning, can finally get the monkey off his back, have a healthy and productive year, and dare I say, make the All-Star team, which that's going to be a hot take I have. So speaking of All-Star game, this could be a little bit more of a shorter answer because I know this could probably be a wormhole. How many All-Stars will the Angels have this year? We for sure are going to have one. Trout's going to make it no matter what. He made it in 2017 even though he was hurt. We've had Shohei. So, for the last couple of years, it's been, two. We had 3 last year. So, Dominic, how many All-Stars will the Angels have this year?
I think realistically, knowing how the fans vote, and the Angels are not the Dodgers, the Yankees, or whatever other team is hot to start the year. Like that one year where 8 of the 9 starters, that the vote before the final vote was like all Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, I remember that.
I would say probably Mike Trout is going to be your only All-Star. But
Okay.
on looking at the rest of the American League, my hope, I'd have to really look at the charts for every other team and positionally. My hope is either Neto or O'Hoppe could get in there, or maybe Brandon Drury. I don't know if any of the pitchers are going to get in there for the Angels because they're not as big name. Like Chase Silseth could pitch a really good first half, but no one's going to really know his name unless
who's Chase Silseth?
Who's Chase Silseth? He's not the big names in the American League. So, what realistically versus what should happen or what can happen, I'd say realistically Trout only, but my hope is either Neto, O'Hoppe, or Drury get in the mix as well for some name notoriety so the Angels have at least 2.
Rob?
I'm going to go 2. Obviously, Trout for sure, but I do think Silseth. The only reason why I say that because Bruce Bochy keeps an eye out on who's in his division there, and he's going to see Silseth, and he's going to tell the Rangers, hey, this guy is their ace. And we know Bochy, he uses a coach's pick, right? I think they get a couple coach's picks. I believe if someone drops out, I can see him being that coach's pick. And like Dominic said, he's not going to get the votes. He doesn't have the name, notoriety. 100% agree with that. But I think Bochy himself will put notice to a young guy like that. And honestly, at that point in time, too, you could almost be recruiting him because we all know the Angels aren't going to sign him long term.
James?
Ooh, you wonder why I keep looking at the team logos. I was trying to figure out, man, you got the Rangers, you got the Mariners and their popular players. I feel like that's going to, stop from Neto getting in and O'Hoppe getting in and even Silseth. But I would think Trout is the only all-star for the Angels this year.
Really?
Now, hopefully it changes with the popularity of the young players. If they produce, if they get popular and they get more, eyes on them, then that will change. But for right now, I have Mike Trout.
Okay. I'm going to go 2. Trout for sure. And then I think it's either going to be Ward or it's going to be Drury. You know, the problem with Drury, he's just such a forgettable player. He's a good, consistent player. And a lot of people just think that consistency is kind of boring, right? There's nothing sexy about being a 260, 270 hitter who gets 25 home runs and has average defense. So with that being said, I think Drury might get in because of an injury. And then Ward has kind of always had that potential, right? We've seen flashes where Ward is one of the better outfielders in baseball in either left or right field in terms of offense. And he has those peaks and valleys. So I'm going to say two guys. Who is it going to be, though, for that second? That's where it gets a little dicey. All right, so let's slowly start winding down here. I'll let you guys maybe throw out any one that you guys have. So last two I have. One, Angels will be legitimate sellers at their trade deadline. I don't mean the 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, it is a fire sale for anybody who, you know, maybe besides Trout, I think he's probably going to be untouchable forever because of Artie Moreno. But is everyone else on the market?
No, because Artie Moreno is still in charge. It will be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Okay. Remember, this is Perry Manassian's final year of his contract as well. So,
but with that being said, and with how little he did this offseason, I can't imagine there must be much of a hot seat scenario because most GMs on the hot seat go all in and a half.
Well, again, other GMs don't have Artie Moreno as their owner handcuffing them. Again, if it was purely up to Perry Manassian, the Angels probably get Blake Snell and JD Martinez. It was from the very onset, that's who Perry Manassian wanted to add to this roster. And you know, Mike Trout is in conversation with everybody. I'm pretty sure he would have signed off on that run. Washington would have signed off on that. It would have checked all the boxes, except Artie didn't want to do it. So regardless of how the GM seed, how on fire it is, I really do think the Angels will, for now and for a long time, will not be that all-out sellers where you see them trying to dip Anthony Rendon's contract. Brandon Drury gets the boot. You know, Aaron Hicks and all these 1 year, 2 year guys that are left, because the Angels really don't have the reinforcements. Because if you trade off those guys, who's really going to be coming in and playing every day? That would be what we've all talked about before, a true breakdown and rebuild. So do I see it? Not for a long, long time. It would take a lot for the Angels to finally do that.
Yeah, I'm the same with that. I don't see them being legitimate sellers. I mean, maybe a player or two, not much after that. But and Perry Manassian, he's gone anyways. I don't think he comes back only because you're handcuffed half the time, so your resume is going to look bad. Well, look at Anaheim. You let Shohei walk. Well, I didn't let Shohei walk because the owner didn't want to sign him. Oh, you didn't improve the team. Well, I tried to improve the team, but already wouldn't sign him. There's only so much you can take as a GM. You have at the same time a reputation to uphold. Because in baseball, it's all it is. It's what's your reputation? What'd you do with your former team? And if you're gonna have someone handcuffing you, I just don't see him. I don't see Perry selling it and tanking it, even though he probably should, but already wouldn't sign off on it at the same time. Because let's be honest, Mike Trout is nearing the wrong side of 30. Your best asset is getting older, so it's being devalued every single month that passes by. So with Trout still on the team, you never be sellers. You can't. You always have to buy.
Yeah, I agree with both of these guys. They won't be all in. They'll trade those 1 year, guys who are left, like Drury and Aaron Hicks. If he has value, they'll go to winners. The thing is, I don't know if anybody would want any of the starters other from Silseth. Maybe Canning, but that would be it. I don't think anyone else would. Maybe Detmers, but you try to get as much for him.
Well, but you got to remember, those are young, controllable pitchers, James, and those guys always have value because they're controllable. Everybody wants controllable pitching.
Yeah, I just don't know the results haven't been there as consistent, as good. So that's why I would be wondering they would hesitate and not be all in at the deadline. So I'll just say no for now, and they'll make little moves like Rob mentioned.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, I would love to see it just because it seems like that's the direction in which we're trending. And I don't mean like at the deadline, like, oh, oh, Hoppy's gone, Neto's gone. I'm not talking about those guys, obviously. When I say full rebuild, I mean there's a lot of guys who are going to be on expiring deals. Drury is one of those guys. Estevez, if he's having a good first half, or at least even an average first half, you can get something for a pitcher out of the bullpen having an average first half.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have all mentioned Hicks. Ward is gonna, be a free agent not after next or this year, but after. So what is that? 2026, that offseason. He's going to be a free agent. So only 2 more years left of control with him. So guys like that who could provide you a return, do you maybe look to trade those guys away? And it's also tough, right? If you're Perry, if you know you're not going to be here or have an inclination that you're not going to be here, do you just kind of blow it up and say, F you, Artie, who cares? Who knows? We'll get a better gauge for that. I kind of just wanted to ask you guys that. Now, before we give our record predictions, do any of you guys have any questions as we wrap up here?
What do the Angels do with Joe Adell? We know that he made the roster, but he's not the starting right fielder. I believe it's Aaron Hicks who outperformed everybody. Mm-hmm. I would go probably Hicks, Adell, Moniak based on the way they performed in spring this year. So you're going to be fighting for at-bats. You didn't clearly win the right field position. How do the Angels – I'll phrase it this way. How do the Angels, or more so Ron Washington, now that the DH hole is opened in this lineup with Ohtani being gone, how does he balance the starting lineup with 3 potential outfielders to play right field and 2 legit middle infielders like a Rengifo and Stefanik and Sano to utilize them to the best of their abilities?
I think Joe Adell is going to be a late inning kind of guy, a pinch runner. On the days like day games, he'll have the keys to the kingdom, perhaps, against lefties type of thing. Because you can't really put Moniak against lefties. You can, obviously, but we know with today's modern day analytics, you're not really going to see that. So perhaps on those days, Hicks is going to be in right field and you're going to have Adell DHing. I don't know. It's tough because we see guys like Luis Rengifo, for instance, start to succeed when he's really getting his footing, when he's really getting consistent at bats. And it seems like Joe Adell's another one of those kind of cats, right? Needs consistent at bats, and he's just never really had that at the major league level. So unfortunately, just like Jose Suarez, he's in a sink or swim mode. He has to figure it out. There is no choice. And the difference between guys like Suarez, if you waive him, like Rob said, there's probably a lot of teams who aren't going to take a flyer on him. Joe Adell is an exception to that. I guarantee you, if he gets waived, half the teams in Major League Baseball would take a chance on him, especially those fringe teams, especially teams like the Reds, the Pirates, who are good at developing those 4A type of guys and then flipping them. The Rays. You mean to tell me Oakland wouldn't take a chance on him? Look at the Rangers, what they did with Adolis Garcia, a nobody, a guy who everyone else gave up on. Nobody wanted him, cleared waivers, and he became a World Series hero. So with that being said, I think Joe Adell has to figure it out, or he's going to have to figure it out elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, free Joe Adell. The Angels have done him nothing but a disservice. Drafted him early. He blew through the minor league system, was playing great, played great in Inland Empire, went through Double-A, did well there. He's great speed. He's defense kind of lackluster in the major leagues, but overall through the minor leagues, he's great defensively. We have not given this guy a chance. He's still a kid in my eyes, too. Look at Brandon Marsh. Look at Brandon Marsh, 220 hitter on the Angels, 300 hitter on the Phillies. We freed Marsh for some odd reason. We let him go. Granted, we got all Hoppy, so it was a win-win for everybody. But what are you going to do with Joe Adell? You're going to have him sit behind Hicks and Moniak, who I both think are a lot better than him currently because of what we've done. But at the same time, with Adell, he's not going to speak out. He's going to keep grinding. He's been working this offseason. He's put on muscle. The guy's trying. I think he's there. I think he should be starting. I'll say that. But I love Mickey Moniak's my only problem. I do like
Yeah,
Moniak a lot
I like Moniak.
too. So it's hard to say, but Joe Adell, you got to let him go, man. Get some value out of him or get what little you can. Do him the service because all we're doing is a disservice to him in his career, putting doubt in his mind. And the Angels have done nothing but fail him and fail a lot of other prospects who have flourished elsewhere.
Hey, we didn't get to see our Joe Adell jumping over a semi truck during the offseason videos on Twitter this year. You know what I mean? Doing his weird CrossFit, like, I'm going to jump over 12 mats. We didn't get to see that this year. James, what do you think is going to happen with Joe Adell?
Man, I think he'll get waived probably probably 3 months in once they realize they won't do anything for him. And I love the spot of the Rays for him. Of the Reds. I thought he was going to go there last year. I just think they take that young talent, whoever they are, and they make something out of it. Just like the Rays. You guys mentioned the Reds and the Rays. I like both of those destination spots for him. Even a team like Colorado, you could boost up those power numbers there.
All of a sudden, he's hitting like 65 home runs, and we're like, huh?
Yeah. It would just be the long lingering thing for the Angels to have someone go elsewhere and do well, either via trade or waive or whatever. Now, if that happened to Suarez, I would be so angry. If he all of a sudden just turned into Cy Young after one little tweak by a pitching coach elsewhere.
Oh, you know that's going to happen if he gets picked up by someone else.
I have just a question for me would probably be, okay, Rob mentioned Perry, GM Perry, having 1 year left. Okay. So if the Angels are mediocre at the deadline and then the team does poorly like it's expected to be, do you think he is not brought back and Ron Washington isn't brought back either because it would be a new GM wanting to bring his folks in?
I don't think Ron Washington's going to stick around longer than his contract. I mean, he's older already. I'm hoping that with Ron Washington, what we get is the implementation of a culture, right? He's going to teach these young guys, give them the keys to success. And now these young guys are going to have this knowledge, this ability going forward. Because we've kind of seen Ron Washington's seeds of success sprinkled around Major League Baseball. You know, Austin Riley, Marcus Semien, just to name a couple, Matt Chapman. So a lot of these guys who have worked under him in some capacity are flourishing elsewhere. So with that being said, I believe that's what Ron Washington was brought here to do. I believe he was brought on short-term on purpose for that very reason. But I'm just excited to see what Ron Washington can do right here, right now, because I don't think he'll be around much after his contract.
Yeah, I think short answer, I really don't want to see Perry go because I'm sick and tired of every 3 to 4 or 5 years. It's just another GM turnover. Or again, this year, I love that we have Ron Washington, but again, it was another offseason of a new coach and a new culture and things change. So I'm tired. I just want to have some consistency for once. And, I would say Perry stays 1 more year to even out Ron Washington's contract, because I know Wash's contract is 2 years this year and next year. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if Artie and even Perry Manassian says, I have enough. I've done enough. I can't do anything with Artie. He's handcuffed me too much. And we have to start this perpetual cycle all over again. So I would love to have Manassian do what he does, because I feel if Manassian was under a different owner, Manassian, I think, would be a very good GM. And I know he tried last year at the trade deadline, and it looked good on paper, and then it didn't develop well. Perry tried, and Perry continues to try. But again, you have the dark cloud of Artie Moreno that just tarnishes everything that the Angels try to touch. So, I just don't want change. I need a pause and change, and I want consistency. So whatever that means, I hope for the best.
All right, Rob, before we go to our last question, go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't see it, man. Perry's done everything he could. I think his hand was forced. I think he had Ohtani trade done. We've heard it from Tampa Bay that the trade was done. We heard from Baltimore there was a trade out there, and it could have been done. All the Angels had to do is pull the trigger. So Manassian doing all this work behind the scenes, which could have brought us back in a year or two, or even this year, be somewhat contenders. But at the same time, you have this owner who doesn't want to do anything anymore. And I won't say that Artie has been a bad owner forever, because he did put out money there, right? He went out and got Pujols. He went out and got Hamilton. He got C.J. Wilson. He spent money on Justin Upton. Got Mike Trout.
Absolutely.
Spent money on Trout.
He spent over $1 billion on players who didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
To your point.
And the reason why, because he doesn't listen to his people. He thinks he knows better. You are not a baseball guy. You're an advertisement guy. What do you buy the Eagles for? $195 million? $184 million. Someone offers you $3.5 billion. You take that. How do you not take that? If your heart's not in it anymore, you can clearly see it. You made your money back hand over fist on that one. I just don't understand. Takes it out on the fans. Awful business. He takes it out on the fans, doesn't do any upgrades, doesn't put a product on the field, says it's entertainment, not about winning. We want winning. Perry wants to win. That's why I don't see him sticking around longer, because all these comments about, entertainment industry. If you're looking for that type of industry, go down the street to Disneyland. Go entertain kids or someone else there, or families there. Don't entertain them in the stadium, because this is not the place. This is a place to win and not ruin one of the best baseball players ever to play the game, his career, and have a dark shadow over him while he stayed in Anaheim and got burned. Because that's honestly what it looks like. What it's going to look like forever for him.
All right, so we have been going way longer than we were supposed to. So with that being said, I got one last question. Before that, thank you to our sponsors, Noble Ale Works. Make sure to head on over there. Park there, walk to the Big A, so you don't have to give Artie Moreno your money for parking. Mention Halos in the infield to get some drink specials. And hell, if you want to go, you're so drunk you want to go to the Angels game, head on over to 714tickets.com, or you can even call them. You never have to pay any of those hidden fees. At checkout, use the code HITI, H-I-T-I, for 10% off of your order. You can use that code again and again, just like a Bonaparte Gigolo. It never expires. It's always good. Use it, H-I-T-I. And another good perk, you get 5% back for future purchases. I've used that to get even cheaper tickets. So, last question I got for you guys. Try to keep it to like 20, 30 seconds, because I know this is another one of those wormhole questions. Dominic, what is your record prediction this year for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of the Western Hemisphere?
For the Western Hemispheres, I'm going to say the Angels, it was 73 wins last year, 73 wins. I think we do better than that. Okay. And I know that's a long stretch with this roster, but maybe I'm a little naive. Maybe I'm a little honkish in believing in what Ron Washington is going to put down. And I feel he can easily get us 5 to 7 wins based on his higher IQ than Phil Nevins was over the last year and a half. So I'm going to put the Angels at 83 to 85 wins, somewhere in that window. Okay. I know that sounds a little stronger than most. And maybe, again, it's naivety or halo honkism here. And it's, less than 24 hours before opening day, and we're all happy about it. But I'm going to say somewhere between 83 and 85. At some point in the season, they're competitive for a wild card chase. I'm not saying they get into the wild card, but they'll be competitive at certain points. Again, I'm not going to say we're going to make a playoff spot, because they gotta earn it before I speak it into existence. So 83 to 85, somewhere in that realm.
I'm going to go a little bit less. As much as an Angel fan, I want to be like Dominic and say, hey, I'm bullish on this team. I think these guys can turn it around. But reality-wise, we don't have the starting pitching to do it. I'm going to say 75 wins. You're going to be 75 and 87 this year. You're going to finish 4th place. You're not going to have it. You don't have the bullpen coming up strong. You don't have the closer. You can't get anywhere. You don't have the starters to get you long enough into the closing position. You have 1 or 2 guys at times. And then you don't have that closer to close out those close games like last year. And look at last year, too. We had the most blown saves in Major League Baseball. How many games we missed the wild card by? Does anybody know? We had 12 blown saves last year. I believe it was 12 blown saves.
What, 12 games?
Take that into account.
Yep.
Was it 12 games?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just going off the top of my head.
I know we missed the division by 17 games, so the wild card was probably between 12 and 15.
Yeah, since we're right.
Oh, God.
James?
Okay, for me, I'm gonna lower the bar of expectations even from the last 2 years. There were 73
Okay.
wins before.
You normally do, and we're always like, "Oh, James, you're always so negative," and you're always right. So,
I'm going down to 69 wins,
wow.
69-93. The rotation is still the same. It's still awful. Other from still Seth, something crazy is going to happen to it again probably. The fact that you don't have Shohei in the lineup that won you a couple more games than you normally would, that's going to have an impact on the season. Just being so young and being like clueless how to be a winning team, I think that's going to really hurt the record this year. So yeah, I'm going lower. I'm going 69-93. I'll just be pleasantly surprised if we get to where Rob is, and I'll be very shocked to get where Dominic is.
Dominic is saying, yeah.
Real quick,
All
too, it was
right.
29 blown saves. I'm sorry. It was 29 blown saves last year for the Angels.
That is even
Wow.
worse.
Even better.
That's
That
a
makes me
winner,
feel
if
so
not.
much better.
All right, so I am also going to say that we're going to finish underneath 500. I have 78-84 as the record. I think the Angels are, going to do. I kind of said already this offseason, as an Arizona Coyotes fan, they started off really, really hot. They had an 86% chance of making the playoffs at one point, but eventually the rest of the league caught up, and now they're like the fifth worst team in hockey. I think the Angels are going to have the same similar thing. I think these young guys are going to overperform the first half of the year. I think we're really going to be drinking that hopium. We're going to be sipping the Artie Kool-Aid. We're going to be like, hey, what? You know what? Things are actually looking okay. We're going to start using the P word. And I think once the second half comes around, I think the rest of the league's going to catch up. I think the secrets are going to be out. That's when the slumps are really going to hit. And I think that's when the young guys are going to grow, because that's what we want. We want competitive baseball. We want these young guys to take their lumps. We want them to learn at the major league level. That's what we've been hoping was going to happen, right? Hey, let the young guys play. We're going to get the opportunity to do that. And because of that, we're going to get the ups and the downs of that. So I think the season's going to start off really well, but I think the Angels are going to start to taper off near the end, just like Dominic said. Maybe they'll flirt with the P word for a little bit. I just don't think they get it done. All right, guys. Well, like I said, we have been going longer than I expected, but it's always a good time to do our preview show. Dominic, as our representative from Catella Chronicles, where can our fans follow you if they don't already do that?
Instagram and X at Catella_CHRON.
There you have it. As always, Dominic, thank you for joining us over from Catella Chronicles.
My pleasure.
You don't need an invitation because that already exists. You guys already know that. Anyone have anything else to say before we close out?
Follow me on Instagram here, and then the P word you're looking for will be pathetic after a while.
There you go. It wasn't playoff, it was pathetic.
No, I thought the P word was parlay.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
Cheers, everybody.
Use code ePay at checkout.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah, right. On behalf of all of us here at Halos of the Infield and our friends under the Halos of the Infield umbrella, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys at the Big A. Have a great night, everybody.